All right, folks, it's a little past 5:30, so let's get started. It is 5:35, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee of October 16th to order, which brings us to item 1.01. Our vice chair is not here, so I'm going to step in and do my best job with roll call. 1.02, Polly Boardman.
Present.
Shannon Coley. Adrian Conley.
Present.
Melissa Cook Sanford.
Present.
Kristen DeHaan. Cami Eloquist Leroux. Ryan Henderson.
Present.
Chris Knox.
Present.
Mia Mansfield.
Present.
Adriana Publico.
Present.
Tyler Rogers. Present. Katie Schneider.
Present.
Wonderful. We have a quorum. And a reminder, this evening we do have interpretation services available to anyone that needs them. They're in the back of the room. I'm not seeing anyone currently utilizing that, but a reminder that if we do see folks using that service tonight, it's important in our own verbal communication to be aware that there are interpretation services happening for the meeting. But thank you for being here. That brings us to item 2.01, approval of the minutes of the September 18th, 2025 meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee, which is an item for possible action. And before anyone makes a motion on this, I do have an amendment to make to the meeting minutes. I think I will call folks' attention to page 7. About halfway down the notes, there was a conversation that started by Kristen DeHaan asking for an option where I think E.S. Smithridge, I'm assuming, would go to DePoli. She later, if you look at the video, rescinded that request. The meeting minutes don't reflect that at current. So I am proposing an amendment of the meeting minutes to capture that Kristen DeHaan rescinded that request throughout the meeting. It starts about, I think it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph on page 7 is where it starts, but there wasn't a capture of the fact that she rescinded that. And I think if you look at the tape towards the end of the conversation, that was part of it. Any questions or concerns with that amendment? Okay, is there a motion that I can get?
Adriana Publico, for the record, I move that the Zoning Advisory Committee approves the minutes of September 18th, 2025 meeting with the amendment that Chair Rogers proposed of adding on page 7 that Kristen DeHaan rescinded the request for the other option.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Thank you. The meeting minutes pass. Okay. Let me get back to the agenda here. That brings us to item 2.02, which is the core of this evening. A reminder to those that have joined us this evening, if you wish to give public comment on this item, please fill out a green card in the back of the room and bring them up to Shannon here at the end. So, item 2.02. Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding proposed enrollment zone adjustments for the 2028-29 school year, potentially impacting the following schools: Roger Corbett Elementary School, Smithridge Elementary School, Edwin Dotson Elementary School, Hidden Valley Elementary School, Donner Springs Elementary School, Kendall DePoli Middle School, E. Otis Vaughn Middle School, DeMonte Ranch High School, and Earl Worcester High School, and this is an item for possible action. And for the record, I'd like to note that Cami Eloquist is here now. Thank you, Cami.
Thank you.
She's a present member. With that, I'll hand it back over to the district staff to present on 2.02.
Thank you, folks. Thanks for your time this evening. Brett Rodella, Long Range School Planner with the district. and just jump right in. We're going to cover some housekeeping and context items. We'll review our options presentation and have some questions and discussion. So the topic purpose for tonight, to help us orient towards our focus here, is to just come to a determination on a recommendation for enrollment boundaries for a new elementary school that's going to be constructed on this very campus, probably where we're sitting right now. The intention of this facility is going to be to consolidate Smith Ridge and Dotson elementaries, which are going to be repurposed to a later to-be-determined purpose. And additionally, some adjacent enrollment boundary adjustments seem appropriate to go along with these updates and changes to the school campus. A quick review of our admin reg 7107, which covers our legacy grades, 5th, 8th, and 12th. I want to point out, as well as apologize, some errors on this that I did not correct. This pertains to the 28-29 school year instead of the 27-28, and it applies to current 2nd, 5th, not 4th, and 9th graders. But essentially what this is stating is that 5th, 8th, and 12th graders at the time of the opening of this new facility, if they're impacted by any enrollment boundary changes, they'll have the option to stay at the school that they've been attending. As far as our guiding principles, a quick review of these. We're going to keep subdivisions and small neighborhood units to the same attendance zone to the extent possible, assign students to the closest school to the extent possible, create compact attendance zones with few or no island areas, include target enrollments that allow for growth and anticipated changing demographics, comply with feeder patterns to the extent possible, and avoid placing a transportation burden on any identifiable site diversity subgroups. A lot of this you've seen last week, but just again, our FMP timeline for related facilities that are impacted through these changes include the elementary school at Pine Campus reconstruction set to open, anticipated to open in the fall of 2028. Smith Ridge and Dotson both repurposing after spring of 2028. And then Hidden Valley and Donner Springs to receive modernizations, which are really revitalizations in the fall of 2033 and 2037 accordingly. The little image at the bottom of this is a legend that is taken out of our facilities modernization plan that defines what a repurpose is, or a revitalization, or a reconstruction for your reference.
Katie Schneider, have these already been approved by the Board of Trustees? You know, in the last meeting, the Kate Smith wasn't decided at the time we talked about it. Are these done?
Smith Ridge and Dotson are not done.
Sorry.
Tammy Zimmerman, Chief Facilities Management Officer, for the record. Smith Ridge and Dotson were contemplated last spring. They were not approved for closure, but it was discussed, right? And then we have discussed them again as late as this last Tuesday's board meeting, and then tomorrow they will be receiving Connect Eds in their communities of the change of use for that, because it requires a 30-day noticing to them, as well as a 10-day Reno Gazette Journal noticing as well, prior to a public meeting, which will be held on November 18th, to have those items before the board for specific approvals.
Okay, so they'll make a final decision in November?
Yes.
Gotcha, thanks.
Thank you, Tammy. A review of special programs at affected schools, the list in front of you here. This is broken down by total classrooms used, with some additional information as to how the nature of those classrooms, and also showing some vacancies of classrooms, and then the programs correlating with those classrooms to the right. We can reference this at any point throughout the conversation tonight. As for transportation, we've talked about the little Corbett notch in red that is most geographically suitable to attend this new elementary school, adjacent to the Smith Ridge enrollment boundary, and is immediately south of the east-west runway for the airport. Should those students be rezoned into this new school, they will be bused, provided they're outside the 1-mile walk zone. The Smith Ridge enrollment boundary in its entirety would walk to the new school as they currently walk to Smith Ridge. Dodson areas will receive bus to either school they end up at, Hidden Valley, or the new elementary school at Pine. And then should that Longley triangle between Longley, Virginia, and McCarran get rezoned to the new elementary school, they'll receive busing to the new school here. There was a question last week about the extent to which new schools are impacted by incoming new students that aren't within the district. And that's what this table covers here. It was kind of specifically focused towards charter schools, but we have this column titled Number of Students from Undetermined. That undetermined includes kids that are currently in homeschool, attending private schools, or state-sponsored charter schools, which we do not have their previous enrollment data. We do have enrollment data for students that attend district-sponsored charters, and they're indicated in their own column there. And then the total of students that we can determine where they come and the undetermined students are on the far right. The average that we see across these 4 new schools summarizes into about 70. We see about 70 additional students from what we expected to see at these, which also encompasses about 15% of their enrollment. So an important point about this as we continue and look through the student enrollment projections for our options is the plausibility that we could very well see 15% plus minus additional enrollment to what's being projected.
So, Bet, just so I make sure I heard you right, then that 15% delta is not included in the numbers we're about to see?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
This slide reviews students impacted, that's current students living in these zones today. It's an analysis showing students, the first number shows the students attending their zone school. The second number is total number of students. So the difference of those would be students that are attending out of zone. The key point here is that of 283 elementary school students attending out of zone in the neighborhoods that we're talking about tonight, 161 of them, or 57%, currently attend district-sponsored charters. So we're entertaining, I think it's healthy to entertain that the district could see an additional 100 students, maybe not just from these charters, but I think it's healthy to consider that we could see a decent amount of charter school students, private school students, homeschool students attend this new school.
Brett, if you don't mind questions you meant
Not at
us
all.
along the way.
Go ahead.
The charter school topic is something new from my experience in these conversations, and I'm just curious why it's sort of entering your guys' analysis now for this area.
Yeah, for the new school, when it comes to setting up the enrollment, day one, our interest, the school district's interest, is to have a capacity that allows for the reception of charter schools students. Charter school students impact WCSD enrollments at an increasing rate. And, depending on who you ask, charter schools are seen as competition for the school district, that the school district would prefer to see those students in WCSD seats. So it's something that the school district is taking more of an active approach in trying to attract these students back to the organization.
That makes sense. I'm curious if there's a particular reason that this community or this zoning decision, like charter schools have entered more than they have historically.
I can't speak to why they haven't been addressed, in past presentations and things like that. It's just, it's something that's become apparent that we're trying to make room for as we build these new schools and plan for a little more. Okay, so getting into our options. Option 1, everyone's seen this as of last month. We're looking at that Corbett piece, that South Corbett piece south of the runway. All of Smith Ridge's current enrollment boundary, and then all of Dotson's enrollment boundary coming into this elementary school at Pine. Before and after of what the geography looks like, probably clearer on your paperwork than on this screen for you maybe, but one thing probably necessary worth pointing out again is that that section in red is currently zoned Wooster. With the expectation that they come to this new school, the proposal is that those students receive a rezone into Damani Ranch High School to attend high school with their fellow students. Appropriate from a geospatial context, and just, so that line indicates as much. The black line shifting north a little bit in the second slide on the right indicates that northern boundary moving from Wooster High School to Damani Ranch High School. And here's the enrollment projections. Indicates Dotson and Smith Ridge both closing, and that elementary school at Pine campus being at a healthy rate, though if you were to tack on 15% of additional students, you'd be at a school that's pretty much at capacity. So real quick, option 2B, we eliminated option 2 from the slide deck as we reviewed last month, that enrollment projections for an option 2, which is similar to this. It sends Dotson to the new school, where this option sends Dotson to Hidden Valley. It just created an environment that was too hot on the enrollment side of things for us to want to go down that path. So now 2B, at the request of President Rogers, looks at sending Dotson to Hidden Valley. And then the same shift at that Corbett piece in red going to the new school, Smith Ridge going to the new school, and the Donner Springs Triangle, defined again by McCarran, Longley, and Virginia, going to the new elementary school. Just to point out that that triangle, even the southernmost tip of it, is closer to the elementary school at Pine than it is Donner Springs Elementary School. This is a before and after of the geography lines on that Dotson area opening up into the Hidden Valley enrollment zone. The Longley Triangle absorbing into the new elementary school, and then again that Wooster to Damani piece moving northward.
Brett, one question as we're looking at option 2B.
Yep.
Can you speak to transportation or safety of crossing McCarran?
Yeah, elementary school students crossing McCarran will receive transportation. Middle school students, I don't think they receive the same accommodation. Do you know?
But those middle school students would be going to,
With this arrangement, the recommendation is that they go to Vaughn.
Okay.
The likelihood would be that they would receive transportation, but I can't be quoted on that. Sorry.
Melissa Cook, for the record, the middle school walk zone is 3 miles right now.
Cami LeRae for the record, and I know that RTC is piloting a new program with WCSD for free ridership. So that's, who knows if it'll continue on, but I know it's no additional cost because it's no additional routes. So that's something that could be a factor here as well.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. That's something that's received a lot of praise throughout the organization, A look at the student enrollment projections for that option 2B. The main point here is that Hidden Valley gets impacted by Dotson, I think, unnecessarily aggressively. They're pretty high in special programs, and it would disrupt the nature of their special programs there. They have the deaf and hard of hearing program, as well as a PASS program, which is, it deals with pretty behaviorally sensitive students. This option is not an option that we like, mainly because of that. And lastly, option 3, which comes again as our staff recommendation. It includes that Corbett piece in red coming south, North Dotson moving to Hidden Valley, South Dotson. This is split at Miraloma Drive, coming to the elementary school at Pine, and then the Donner Springs Triangle, the Longley Triangle, coming to the new elementary school. We like this option most because, again, it offers space to bring students that are currently attending charters and homeschool and private school to this new elementary school. And it helps reinforce enrollments at Hidden Valley, which they're operating at, I think, 47% of capacity right now.
Brett, what middle school would the Dotson Elementary School, the sort of the green, or the blue polygon go to?
They're zoned for Vaughn. And then same with the orange. They go north to Vaughn.
I see.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that whole area right now is zone Vaughn. Per the 26-27 school year.
Cami LeRae, for the record, could you just give, I agree on this 2B option is a little bit, I think like 44 points as far as percentage goes, shift, it's a lot. But option 3 still does have impact into Hidden Valley. So where 1 is really clean, so, you know, the fact that option 3 is on here is one of the major drivers to use the Hidden Valley facility more to its potential capacity. Is that one of the major drivers on this?
Yeah, that's a fair way of putting it, and really reinforcing its enrollments. If we look at the student enrollment projections here, you know, they're operating, their like 10-year average is looking to be at 42% of capacity, at under 200 kids. That's not from my experience doing this work the past few years, that isn't the best student count for running a school, especially like Hidden Valley. So whatever reinforcement we can get to Hidden Valley through these avenues makes sense to us. We find it to be a win-win in that regard for Hidden Valley, and it also allows us space on that elementary school at Pine campus to welcome students back to the district from outside of it. So,
Great, and I guess the only other question I have in looking at both of these on, you know, option 3 and seeing sort of the expanded kind of impact area on the shifts of that, and looking at populations, you might not have this data, but in looking at those populations and anticipating, okay, where could we possibly get another 15% coming back to WCSD from charter schools? So it's hard probably to estimate, you know, looking at the population on this option 3, but give us a sense of charter schools, sort of that, do you have a number of charter schools that are sort of in the same vicinity that might reflect a potential shift back into WCSD?
yeah, so Mariposa is like a stone's throw away from this campus. Coral Academy of Science Southern Campus is on Neal Road. There's one other that's on the tip of my tongue that is escaping me, and that's as much as I can say from, specific. So I think I covered the main points that I was looking to as far as these student enrollment projections for this option 3. Again, we like what this is doing for Hidden Valley and for the expectations of the new elementary school at Pine. Tyler asked us to throw in this guiding principle scorecard. This is subjective, you know. I would be interested to see how any of you would score these. We can go through them though. So guiding principle 1, which pertains to keeping subdivisions together, are both good in 1 and 2B. In 3, that Dodson neighborhood splits going north and south. I mark that as neutral because the distance from Dodson to Hidden Valley and Dodson to this campus is identical. I want to say it's 0.7 miles. If there was a bigger difference in those two things, I would probably categorize that as an inferior situation, but I think given that point, it's fair to call it neutral. As far as any of these enrollment boundaries go to the closeness factor, I think they all get a good standing as far as that goes. Like I said, that Dodson campus equidistant to Hidden Valley and this campus justifies the good rating. Donner Springs Longley Triangle closer to here than Donner Springs, and that Corbett piece. I didn't do the distance, but you've probably driven that section of road along the airport and can make the assumption or the read that that area belongs here more so than going north to Corbett, which is by Wooster High School. As far as compactness goes, I think that consistently good. As far as guiding principle 4 allows for growth, 1 sets the capacity at the new school to be higher than the other 2. I gave it a neutral. It's not completely disqualified, but again, if we see that 15% of new students from the new school factor, I think it could dip into inferior there. As for feeder patterns, I'm going with good on these, provided that the middle school zone shifts with the Donner Springs Elementary School zone. And then lastly, the transportation burdens. You know, some students, as a result of these changes, especially the Dodson neighborhood, will become transportation students. And that's just kind of the nature of what these changes are presenting. I don't think it's necessarily an inferior change because there's nothing that can really be done about it. The Dodson is going to be repurposed, and you know they're going to need to get to school. So I think transportation is not necessarily a burden in these situations. That South Donner Springs area, those kids receive transportation to Donner Springs now, and will receive transportation to the new elementary school here if they're rezoned here. And then again, anyone outside of 1 mile in that Corbett zone will receive transportation to the new school. So hopefully this achieved what you were kind of looking for. I thought it was a good exercise, and it came across pretty cleanly, so.
Yes.
We'll continue
I'm a
doing
fan.
this.
I get it subjective, but
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah,
for
we can, and you know,
taking a swing.
let's challenge the subjectiveness of it, you know, like it'll make me better at this, and you can poke holes in where I'm not right. All right, so lastly, our staff recommendation, again, we're going with option 3. We like this as stated because it gives some reinforcement to Hidden Valley, and it gives us the option and ability to welcome new students back to the district if we can. We've provided a recommended motion here if it suits you. It's there for reference. And with that, I will give it to you for questions and discussion.
Thank you, Brett, as well as taking our questions along the way. Other questions from the committee of staff?
Katie Schneider, I have a couple questions. When I look at the special program slide, is it safe to assume that when you consolidate Smithridge and Dodson, that those programs would go to the new school?
Yeah, it's a good question. The main thing is those programs, they'll follow the students. And say you have 2 programs, 1 program at each school, and one program can, serve all
Sure.
students.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so.
Okay. I also agree. I think option one is really clean. And I'm a little skeptical on the big assumption that the charter students will return. And it seems like it's a pretty strong driver in that case. And my reasoning for this is, again, I know not everyone agrees with me, but if I look at kind of the Nevada report card ranking of schools, some of those charter schools rank quite high. So who knows, who's to say if a brand new building will be that, pushes them there? I could be wrong, who knows? So yeah, for that reason. And then, sorry, the last question is, you mentioned that Hidden Valley has a lot of really unique special programs. Have we reached out to the principal and the staff to say, can we take on the additional students that you have in option 3 and still serve our unique population really well? Or would it sort of strain those resources, even though it's a smaller number than in some of the other scenarios, like option 2?
I reached out to the principal this week and did not get any feedback, so
Okay.
I tried.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd be interested to hear if they feel like I said, just because you mentioned the population is so unique, would we still be able to serve them really well? Yeah, with more students.
The special program slide shows 5 vacant classrooms at Hidden Valley, and operating at a 47% capacity. I think they bumped to maybe 60 with the addition of the northern section. My read on it is that they'll be okay, and again, they'll be helped in different ways through the reception of additional students, which that area, there's no new development proposed in that Hidden Valley zone, like for the foreseeable future. So, and the enrollment trends for Hidden Valley correlate with the rest of the district and the nation and the state that
Yep.
they're in decline. So,
I understand.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions of Brett?
On this option, they would go to middle school at Vaughn and then to Wooster, correct?
That's correct. However, that Smith Ridge boundary goes to Demonte Ranch High School. And as this before and after shows, that Corbett piece will shift down to Demonte Ranch as well.
Okay, then on option 3, I just had a question about the split Dotson. I know that in one of our last decisions, we sent Hidden Valley down to DePoli Middle School and then to Demonte. Would we do that same thing then for the north, the blue, if they were going to be going to Hidden Valley, so that we're, again, trying to keep kids together? I realize that makes kind of a weird zoning line, but to
Yeah.
keep kids together, not do as many split feeders?
So Hidden Valley zoned Vaughn Wooster, and that would remain the same with this Dotson piece, as they are now. Sorry, yeah.
Cami LeRae for the record. So I'm looking at option 3, and just as, it's not as big as the impact at Hidden Valley. It is a negative impact on enrollment over at Donner Springs. So, taking them well into the light blue, if you will. So, as we try to optimize what's going on at Hidden Valley, we also, there's a decent effect at Donner Springs with a reduction. So I'm a little bit concerned about, pupils, like the experience for students and programs and such.
Yeah, that's a fair observation. One thing I'll say to that is that the majority of the Talus Valley subdivision, some 2,700 units, is zoned for Donner Springs. We don't know what we have an idea for what that's going to mean in terms of student development, but we don't predict the future. So the one thing is that it's one of the biggest residential projects in the area. We do expect to receive students out of it, and the majority of that project is in Donner Springs enrollment boundary. So I can give you that much.
Brett, just to follow up on that, your projections of the students coming from Tallis are in that 50% projection, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff before we take public comment?
One more on that, just to follow through. So these numbers include Tallis, which is yet to be fully built. Not quite sure, don't have the crystal ball. So
Yep.
if Tallis were to slow down, if the economy were to tank and make building that out more expensive even than it is right now, then these reductions at Donner Spring would fall even more.
They could.
Katie Schneider, one more question. The yellow Dodson in option 3, the South Dodson, remind me which high school what would be the middle school, high school path of that yellow,
For South Dodson,
orange, sorry, yeah. Yes.
so currently their zone Vaughan Wooster, they'll remain Vaughan Wooster.
And then the purple is,
So
Vaughan.
that's the current Smith Ridge. They attend, their 26-27 is going to be Vaughan and then going to Damani Ranch.
got it. So would that orange, now that if it was going to a consolidated Pine, would the high school change or they'd stay Wooster?
They would remain as is. So
stay
last
Wooster.
spring,
split.
we worked on the zoning for the new Vaughan Middle School,
Yep.
which is incorporated into these
Yep.
these analyses. So
So these would all be Vaughan, but high school would be different?
correct.
Okay, got it.
And I'll remind us of the conversation we had in the spring, which was to try to have some foresight to this decision now, is that when we were drawing that line, we understood that we would be facing this now. So I think that the intent of Zach was aware of that split feeding that was happening, because that was what we heard from the community at that point. Okay, I'm not seeing any other green lights. Thank you, Brett. And I will also, thank you for taking our questions along the way. I'll also remind the committee that if you do have questions of staff outside of the meeting, please route them through me, and I will then sort of get them to Brett and staff. That's just sort of the best process. Thank you. At this point, I think we will open it up to public comment on item 2.02.
Elena Alt.
There should be a little button at the bottom. There you go.
Got it. Hello, thank you for your time. My name's Elena Alt. I'm a teacher at Damani Ranch High School in my 30th year of experience and 20 years at Damani Ranch High School. We're very, very excited that you guys were able to keep our kids at DeMonte. Thank you for all your hard work on that last spring. I'm here today to advocate for those same families in terms of what middle school that they should go to. And I know that's a tiny detail compared to all of the complications you guys have right now to deal with all the elementary schools. But I want to put a highlight as to what are the challenges for these families and for our school when we have kids going to different middle schools. So when kids are coming to Damani Ranch High School and they're coming from multiple feeder schools, we're well aware of the challenges because we've been dealing with this for over 20 years at our high school. And it's rare for most of our high schools, they don't have that challenge, but we've seen how it is really hard on kids. Especially when they are not coming from the primary feeder school. They come to our school, they feel like they're the outsiders. They do have a different focus. Each middle school has really good vertical articulation with their main feeder school, and the principal from Vaughan last spring spoke really eloquently about how well Vaughan Middle School works to prepare kids for Wooster, and how they work closely and specialize the programs. And I'm sure the education is exceptional. However, that does make additional challenges for any kid coming to Damani. Then they have had a different focus and a different preparation. And the the challenges we've seen over the years. There's a harder adjustment in high schools, a really hard adjustment anyway, when kids have to come in and they're the outsiders, and maybe the curriculum and the vertical articulation hasn't been there. Now they've got really additional challenges that other kids don't face. So what I'm asking is for this committee to consider postponing a vote. I know that's really awful because you've worked hard, you want to be done, but I think that we need an option where any kid who's going to be going to Damani Ranch High School goes to a feeder school at DePoli. And last spring, we had families from Huffaker who spoke very passionately about wanting their kids to go to Swope and to kind of stay together with their communities and then to ease their transition into high school. And although Swope was at 90%, that was allowed. And so I'm asking this committee to reconsider voting today to build another option that would allow all Damani Ranch future students to go to DePoli Middle School for the advantage of these communities to have great vertical alignment and an easier transition to high school. Thank you.
Thank you. I also like the record to show that Chan Coley is now present. Other public comment?
Pablo Nava Duran.
Right. Good morning, guys. My name is Pablo Natuan. I'm a neighborhood vice board for Ward 3 for City of Reno. So I want to talk about the zoning options. So I propose option 1, sure, toss it out because of a split feeder situation for high school, and also limitation of Hidden Valley not helping out enrollment at Hidden Valley. So I will support option 2B and option 3 as a staff recommendation. So we know we need to fill up the new elementary school Pine campus, but we need to fill up at Hidden Valley Elementary School because Hidden Valley Elementary School is a low school. Their enrollment is low as well. So if you watch the last school board meeting on Christine Hall, they said like you visit Hidden Valley Elementary School, they have one 4th grade teacher, just one. If there's a situation with 2 kids at one, you don't get to separate them, despite they being past grad. And also, like they cannot separate those students. This is very hard for the teacher, being teacher at Hidden Valley, especially for 4th and 5th grade, being only one 4th grade 5th teacher for entire school. So I want to help Hidden Valley Elementary School, but increase enrollment, support option 2B and 3. And I want Dawson to decide if you want to join us to a new elementary school Pine campus or go to Hidden Valley Elementary School. But guess what? Nobody showed up, so if not their fault. So if you want to set up to another meeting on November, sure, but make sure to attend those Dawson PTA meeting every single day. Word of mouth. Shout out to Dawson parents. This is happening right now. School closure will happen. And we're going to set up for a November meeting with Dawson community and parents showed up. So also, I want to speak about the Smith Street community. I want to support Smith Street to go to DePoli, but not now because DePoli will, if you send them to DePoli, they will overcrowd it because of Town Valley development going on and urination of Vaughn Middle School. As a Ward 3 member, I will work hard to make sure the reinvestment and commitment to make sure the central winter area may make more viable so they can increase the enrollment. So if the Town Valley community is expensive in the overcrowded Vaughn, we could send a Smith Street down to the Vaughn Middle School of 5 and 8 years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Antonio Angelo.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Antonio Angulo. For the record, I am the PTO president for Smith Ridge. Interesting conversations we had with all the members, well, one member specifically in facilities. But basically, you guys know my thoughts. I'm not going to sugarcoat it anymore. I'm not going to sit here and, play this advocation for these numbers or anything like that. Basically, bottom line for us is we just want to advocate for us to go straight in one pipeline, plain and simple. The one thing I would say that I missed out of my public comment for what was put in was we are also asking for you guys to postpone. I know it sucks, but we feel reaching out to the rest of our community partners, it's very apparent that nobody knows what's going on. It's very apparent that not only do we not know what's going on, but the information is not being disseminated correctly. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesus Alvarez.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Jesus Alvarez, and I am a teacher at Damani Ranch High School. Realistically speaking, having the students attend Vaughn instead of DePauli would set our students at a disadvantage and mislead them as they would be prepared for an IB program that we do not have at Damani. I'm not implying that the students would be unprepared for our curriculum, but they would not only be considered the new kids once they reach us at Damani, but they would also need to readjust quickly as their focus would shift once the majority start in Algebra 1 as freshmen. With all due respect, I feel that there is some hypocrisy with some of the zoning options that the committee has provided in comparison to the new expectations on teacher clarity that the district has put on us teachers. In fact, this week at our PD, we high school teachers were able to work with our feeder middle schools to get some ideas and on expectations and collaborate on strategies that we could work on to vertically align ourselves within feeder schools. I believe that some zoning options would discredit the work us teachers have started in vertically aligning ourselves within feeder schools, as zoning options would physically put us teachers in a situation where we physically cannot vertically align ourselves. I believe that we should consider having all students attend DePauli and feed into Damani, as this would vertically align us with a school that we have much collaboration with and gives us an opportunity for the students to stay together, get familiar together, and would ultimately help major behavioral concerns that erupt with students when they are new. In fact, elementary schools are unaware of the movements going toward Damani. We need to give families and teachers time to readjust. Let's keep our students together if they are already together to allow them to reach equitable success. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other in-person comments for this item.
Very good. Thank you for those that have joined us for public comment. That brings it to a point to open up deliberation amongst the committee.
Polly Boardman for the record. Tyler, remind me in April, like we had the choice, we put Smith Ridge to Vaughn and Damani, and there was an option in there with the DePauli, but I know that I think the community was pushing for the path that we picked. The other side of the path that we had picked got overwritten by the Board of Trustees, so I think that's what we're dealing with here. But and I look at these numbers from Smith Ridge, and I know that this is in a lot of our public comments that we received. It looks like there's too many kids that would be in the new Pine campus to fit into DePauli anyway, right? Is that why that's not an option here tonight? Because I mean, if you got 573 kids at the new Pine and DePauli only has, 400, 500 kids space, then we're already over capacity. Is that why that wasn't an option for a path? I mean, we had already talked about it in April, so I can see why that wasn't really on the docket today, but obviously it's a passion that's come up in here, and obviously things have changed after our meeting in April and the board going a different direction. So do you have any light on that?
My recollection of the journey was very much what you described in sort of the first half there, that like we went through the process and reached a point in which Zach voted around a situation of creating the split feeder. that some of the Smith Ridge would go to Vaughn, but then we heard loud and clear they wanted to go to Damani. And so I think that was the discussion, the deliberation that we had at that time that led to the vote that we took to the board. I can't speak to the second half of like the non-inclusion of options for Smith Ridge to go into DePaul and Damani, other than the intent and the action of Zach and the board last spring sort of made that decision.
Can you remind me how we notify the schools and the parents and all the people that are going to be involved with these changes that these may be happening?
I will phone a friend of district staff to sort of remind us of the channels used, please.
Tammy Zimmerman, Chief Facilities Management Officer. So for every zoning meeting that we schedule and we put on the docket, we send out Connect Eds in English and Spanish to all of the schools that are affected in their communities. So the families and the staff get that Connect Ed stating that we're going to be talking about zoning that may affect their school at this specific meeting.
Yeah, Cami LaRae, for the record, a Connect Ed, is that an email? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Connect Ed.
So Connect Ed, you can choose, is my understanding, you can choose either to get just an email or an email and a phone call when my students were in school as well. So you can get it both ways, and you can also opt out of it, which a lot of parents don't realize they can opt out, and then they don't get the communications.
Is it also posted in Infinite Campus as a message?
Infinite Campus is not the message board. The Connect Eds are the messages for that.
I want to speak a little bit about, I think, the communication path, because it was referenced in public comment. I did have a phone call with the PTA president at Smith Ridge with district staff yesterday to try to get additional feedback. There was an email shared in public comment as well on that, and I think what stood out clear me from that conversation is that this community still has questions, which gives me pause. There's a clear ask from the Smith Ridge community really of two things. One, they are natively Spanish speakers, and so they're asking for information in Spanish. And two, they're asking for the information to be like consolidated. Like, this is a lot. Like, I've been doing this for a few years and it still takes me time. And so to me, that is a loud and clear message from this community that's being directly impacted, that even despite the district's best attempt across multiple channels coming into this room, that there's still not information getting there. And that gives me pause of taking action tonight, because I want this community to feel like they have been heard and they have the information at their fingertips. And so I took away from that public comment that there is action that still needs to be taken before I'm personally comfortable acting. And so my ask from that sort of conversation is back to district staff to say, is there a way to create some sort of content from this that is in Spanish and is a sort of abbreviated version that can be sent back out to the community, or even worked with community partners to get that into the hands of this community that's sort of saying they're confused.
So Tammy Zimmerman, Chief Facilities Management Officer. We can work to see what we can put together with a one-pager of what the highlights are in Spanish for them for the next meeting. And we can then put it in this entire packet that we could put out as a public document.
Thank you for that offer, and I think thank you.
Okay, Tammy, back to Polly's question about, I wasn't here for all the options, but I'm pretty sure they don't talk about middle schools we don't switch middle schools at all.
Correct.
Okay.
The middle schools are
part of the
proposed to
option.
remain the same as what was agreed upon or recommended and approved by the board for this area back in the spring.
Okay, so my question with Polly was saying, any of these options, putting them all into Poli couldn't happen in any of these options because there's too many kids.
We can look at the numbers, but as Polly stated, just looking at them from her lens, they would be overcrowded at DePoli. So we could bring that back at the next meeting if that's your choice to see that, but it would, I believe, I'll phone a friend with Brett, but I believe it does do exactly what Polly's saying, is it overcrowds them if we change it to the DePoli.
I think each option needs to include a DePauli instead of Vaughn, because that's their wish, just to see what it turns out to be, if it's A, B, or C with Dodson, if we split them or whatever it is, this is what will happen to DePauli. This is what will happen to Vaughn.
So I think we need to go back and look at what we looked at in the spring, because those numbers are in there in the spring, right?
Even with the split of Dodson, we had that, like, I forget which option that is.
So Dodson, with the split of Dodson,
Go half, some going here, some going
so
to,
half of them went to Pine here, right? The elementary school here, they still go to Vaughn.
oh, Hidden Valley will go to Vaughn, but I'm saying.
Because Hidden Valley is currently
Going to
zoned for Vaughn
Okay.
and Worcester.
Okay.
So they would follow that same.
Right.
Right, with the split.
Right, but the other half would have gone here and also to Vaughn?
To Vaughn and then to Worcester.
Yeah. Okay,
So
then to Worcester, okay.
all of Dodson ends up going to Worcester in both scenarios.
Okay, and my other question is, they're talking about vertical alignment in high school. As far as I know, and I could be wrong, don't high schools have multiple feeders, most high schools? I don't know, is there a high school that just has one feeder from junior high, middle school?
I think there's a variety of that throughout the district.
There is one, there are
So-
some
so
that
if you
has
think-
one feeder.
Most of them have a couple middle
No,
school
'cause
feeders,
Billinghurst
right?
goes to Reno. There's
So-
other people that go to, how many middle
So-
schools go to Reno High?
How many middle schools? Swope, and then you have Clayton.
Clayton.
Some of
Okay,
Clayton
just
goes there.
two,
Right,
okay.
so there's two. McQueen has Billinghurst and part of Clayton as well.
Okay, yeah. I just didn't understand the single vertical alignment. I didn't know that that was a common thing.
I think we talked about it in the spring, about the alignment, and about that students choose with school of choice to go to other high schools, and that was a big determining factor of why it was okay for us to set out some of them to go to Damani and some of them to go to Worcester, because a lot of them have school of choice that they go for signature academies, IB programs, AACT, Debbie Smith. And so it was determined, and that, as I recall, that was the discussion. At high school, they really get to make more choices.
I think we have to recognize as a committee a decision that was made in April. And I think it basically comes down to us now. Is there a desire of a committee member to revisit that as part of an option? Because I think the will of Zach and the board made a decision in the spring on this sort of alignment of the middle schools and the high schools. And so I think I'm curious if there's someone from the committee that is asking to sort of revisit that option.
Isn't that what you're asking for? Because you're asking to wait for the community.
I'm asking that we give the community an opportunity to make sure they get all the information that's being discussed here, because they're telling us that they aren't, that they haven't been.
But then it should be communicated that what we chose in April is not going to change. If we're making that decision, is that what you're asking?
But it had changed, and I guess that's my concern. So what we voted on here was based on all those pieces moving together, and then there was a change after us. So I just thought, is there a way to look at these numbers? I mean, it's loud and clear in the public comment that people have looked at that, and they're saying, hey, there was a change after we sat in here for 4 hours. Can we look at then this other half that we thought was going along with the package? So it might be in our best interest. I mean, I get not going back on something we did, but we're looking at these numbers. Can we look at it all? If it shows like, hey, it's 110% crowded, and this is a reason, I mean, it might be something to look at just to make sure we have those numbers in front of us. I don't know what everybody else.
Shannon Coley, for the record. Are we gonna overrule the school board?
That's not what we're discussing. What we're discussing is the will of Zach. We can draw the lines how this committee decides, and we can take a recommendation to the school board. They are the ultimate arbiters, if this body decides through this process that we're going to revisit the decision from the spring and take that to the school board, they can say yes or no. But we as a committee have to agree, are we going to revisit that decision? What I'm hearing from some members is that there is a desire to relook at those numbers as part of this process. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I was just bringing it up as a point of discussion for the board to decide. I mean, it's definitely something that's coming up in the notes, and then I was surprised that it's not in the numbers to show like, hey, there's 600 kids we'd have to put into 400 spots. That's not doable, you know? I mean, if it's something that it's a moot point, like I have no idea, like, you know, that's, you guys can tell me that, but I just thought something to bring up is something that's coming up in a lot of the notes, and I understand their concerns.
Yeah, it's loud and clear from elements of the community.
Yeah, Camila Ray for the record. So there's a little dissonance in my mind, at least, on opening things up, revisiting decisions, asking for a redecision from the arbitrators, you know, the arbiters, or the board, to reconsider things. What's an exercise in futility? Are we prolonging something that we basically have the data to make, you know, decisions on? Because I think to the professional development point, you know, teachers are working together. They're trying to get vertical alignment. There, you know, there's assumptions on, you know, where kids are going. And if we continue to delay and go backwards in time, then we are not only impacting a facilities plan, but we're also impacting potentially work that's getting done right now. So I think that it's, we got to look at this from, are we pushing an exercise in futility, and are we taking steps backwards? I think that that's a real risk if we go back to the spring decision.
Melissa Cook for the record. I'm wondering if, and maybe it would require us to look back at a decision or not, but looking at option 3, for example, or even any of the options, would it be possible, you know, however we decide that we're going to move the elementaries into this Smith Ridge, but an option that then shows the olive Dotson and the red of Corbett going to Vaughn, Wooster, but then Smith Ridge and Donner Springs being able to go south to DePoli and DeMonte for the secondary options. I would like to see what that would look like.
Can you restate that? I'm sorry, I was catching up with our council. What's the option you've asked for?
So having the blue, orange, and red for a secondary option being Vaughn, Wooster, and having the purple and the green coming south to DePoli and DeMonte for the secondary. Because to speak to some of the split, for example, Sparks High School gets Trainer and Sparks Middle School. Reed High School gets Dilworth and Mendive. Some of Sky Ranch depends on where you live in the Sparks area. So that's kind of not in my opinion, not a really good logical line, because it's not doable all of the time to have 100% from elementary to high school, same group of kids. We're gonna add new kids to each new equation when they go to middle school, when they go to high school. So I think, you know, we do have to go with our guiding principles of the geographic locations, but also historically, and also what the community is wanting. And it is very loud and clear. The Smith Ridge community specifically really wants to go south. That's what they've been doing. That's what they want to continue to do. So that's where I'm wondering, could we, you know, split the egg and have that upper east end go, you know, to Vaughn and Wooster, and then we let the purple and the green head down towards DePoli and DeMonte, and then we're kind of splitting the egg there, if that makes sense.
Thank you for restating that. And I think I will remind the committee too, I think a key aspect of the discussion is transportation. Like these communities and these schools, school of choice is an option, but it's not as much of an option for this community because they rely fundamentally on transportation. And so to me, a lot of this conversation and issue is around access to transportation to give them choice. I think the committee is toiling with this idea of revisiting the lines that we drew last spring. Even in the sort of the option you just suggested would do that. And I think we don't typically do this, but I think that we should actually vote as a committee on the will to revisit that decision and to start to explore options of the sort of Smith Ridge going south for middle school. And because I think we need to understand what is the will of the committee to even start down that path, to revisit what we did in the spring. And this is not an option that we're saying, I'm not proposing a vote to take to the school board. I'm proposing to understand the sentiment of the committee to revisit options and decisions that were made last spring. So Neil, does someone need to make a motion to vote?
Yeah, that give me,
I have a quick question. So in revisiting, can we get more information out to the community that is saying that they don't really understand what was decided?
I mean, I think that whatever action we take tonight, there'll be a process to get information to the community as part of this writ large.
so the communications team did send in a communication on that. And there, of course, there was the agendas posted, there was social media, and there were Connect Ed sent out both in Spanish and English, just so that the committee knows. Yeah, I think what we should do, I just want to make sure we're consistent with the agenda title. So we're looking at revisiting what the lines that were last year. So that's what I'm trying to analyze here. It's under item 2.02. I want to make sure that we're consistent. So what specifically are we looking at redoing?
I think that the discussion in front of us is making a request to staff to look at options that would move the middle school boundary that was decided last spring.
Boundary for what school? Okay. All right, Smith Ridge is on here. I just want to make sure that we're consistent. Smith Ridge Elementary School to DePoli Middle School, is that right?
Yes, I mean, I think that is the primary discussion topic.
Okay. That's consistent with the agenda. You can make a motion to that regard.
So I need to make a motion?
Well, you or whomever, yeah, any other, normally the chair doesn't, normally the chair looks for other members, but chairs are allowed to, there's no law that prevents that. So if you want to do it, you could, or you could ask one of your colleagues to do it.
I would prefer not to make a motion, so I'm curious if there's anyone else on the committee that wants to make a motion for the revisiting of this topic.
Chair Rogers, I would ask that if you are going to consider that motion, and specifically for Smith Ridge, would you consider Corbett as well with that, so that they're all?
Sure, yes.
Right, I just want to be clear, because if we're going to include them in this section here, it makes geographical sense, then that would be part of your request to us.
Before the motion, can somebody, now, I guess. I mean, I know we did this.
Was to move the purple line, the purple polygon was going south into DePoli. And we drew the line so that would go into
Smith Ridge and all those are already going to DePoli.
Not all of them, yeah.
So where's Smith Ridge go right now?
Today, Smith Ridge goes to DePoli, and we moved the line in the spring to move them into Vaughn.
Okay. Got it, thank you.
Today, yeah, I'm sorry, today they go to Pine, which is going away. I'm apologies, correction there, yes. Today, Smith Ridge goes to Pine, that's going away. Their ask the community's sentiment largely is, and again, this is what we did last spring.
So I think to clarify, the motion is not necessarily that we're wanting to move that these schools would become a Smith Ridge on the Pine campus, or however we're listing this, Pine Elementary, but more looking at the secondary options.
The motion is not to take something to the school board. The motion is to assess the will of the committee, to make an ask of staff to revisit options that would sort of undo what we did last spring.
I would like to make a motion to revisit the secondary feeder for Smith Ridge and Corbett. Do I have to say anything
Okay.
else? Yeah.
Chris Knox, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to revisit the secondary feeders for Smith Ridge and Corbett in a second. Any questions on this?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
before you vote, let me suggest, so that staff has a little leeway, because right now that's a very narrow motion. So maybe the committee would entertain, just in case they need some levity to, right? Levity isn't the right word, some
Flexibility.
flexibility, thank you. You might need some levity too. So how about we say, I would suggest adding in some language that says, gives the staff the ability to make any necessary adjustments as it relates to these two borders,
Can
or
you just
something along
speak
those
up?
lines.
Shannon Coley for the record. I would say all the schools, just to give them leeway, literally every school that's listed.
Does the maker of the motion, are they comfortable with that amendment?
I am.
Is the second comfortable with that amendment?
I am.
Great, so we have a motion and a second. The motion, I think, is everyone clear on the motion that's on? Yes, I'm seeing affirmation. Okay, so we will vote now. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, so we've done that and given district staff clear guidance. I don't think we are going to now make a motion on this. I do want to say, though, I do feel like hearing from the community is fundamental in this process, and I feel like both the Dotson and Hidden Valley communities have been absent from this. So I'm going to make a commitment to the committee to reach out directly to those schools and the PTA, which is fairly standard for sort of how I like to operate, to try to get their feedback. And encourage them both to come in November, but also I will try to solicit feedback across the options from them, so I can bring that to you guys. Any other questions or deliberation on this?
Tyler, do you think we could have it at Dotson next time? Or are we set up already?
I think it's completely unknown, because I think the staff was expecting that we may make a decision tonight, so it's a matter of where to go next. It is always my preference to be out in the community, but it is also not logistically easy always to be there. And so I think at this point we should be TBD on exactly where we'll be in November. Yeah, that's sort of my current opinion.
Chris Knox, I just had a quick question about, since we're now discussing middle school boundaries, I didn't think we were before, but now it seems to be open. One of the comments from the public was about DePaul's numbers, and that they're already having 20 to 50% of students from each area use DePaul through school of choice. So I was just wondering if that's something that can be accounted for, or is already being accounted for. So just going forward, I'm curious about that.
Great feedback. Thank you. Any other deliberation or feedback from the committee to inform what we do and discuss next month? Okay, then I will call this agenda item to a close. Brings us to closing items. 3.01, general public comment.
Antonio Angelo.
For the record, Antonio Angulo again, PTA. for Smithridge, can we also request, I know we keep going back and forth that we're saying that this information's coming out to us. The notes are not coming out in Spanish. This material, these slides and everything else is not coming out in Spanish. We understand, and we are here in facilities, so we ask, can we also possibly get the notes also in Spanish? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to district staff for continuing to try to take these requests, because I think it's very helpful.
Elena Alt.
Hi again. I just wanted to add some clarity for what happened last spring. Last spring, there was not an option for Smithridge to go to DePauli and then Damani. The question at consideration last spring was, would Smithridge go to Worcester or to Damani? And after the Huffaker parents spoke about going to Swope, and that was approved, then at the very, very end of the whole conversation, we didn't even think about a middle school, and that hadn't even been part of our consideration. Our entire focus was Damani. So there was no option for Smithridge, DePauli, DeMonte, and so just wanted to clarify that it wasn't that the community wanted Smithridge, Vaughn, DeMonte over Smithridge, DePauli, DeMonte. There was no option for both, and when we brought up that option at the very end, the thought was, I think everyone was just exhausted, and it was like, we're not going to consider that right now. In addition, one other thing is we already have changed the ruling from last spring, because last spring, for Donner Springs, was Donner Springs, DePauli, DeMonte, and now in our options, it is Donner Springs, Vaughn, DeMonte. So just FYI, this committee already in its rezoning has gone against what the plan was in terms of the Donner Spring community. And I spoke with one of the administrators' spouses his wife goes to, or is an administrator at Donner Springs. They didn't know there was a change. They didn't understand that there was a change for their kids on what feeder school they would go to. I also spoke to a colleague who works at Corbett Elementary. No idea that some of their kids would then be going to Damani. So we do have an issue with communication, because what happens when we get the blast, you may be impacted. There is not a link, to my knowledge, of the actual notes. And then reading through the notes, again, it is really hard. If there could be a summary sheet sent out via email to these families, Spanish and English, and to the schools, it would be helpful, because it is a very vague email. And if I didn't have a former student who spoke last year, some of you guys who were on the committee might remember the student from Damani who then went to Yale, and he was really advocating. He messaged me. He's actually trying to fly out for the November meeting from Yale to be here because he's so passionate about it. He messaged me and he's like, here's the link. Look and see what's happening, because it is really hard to find information. So just a thought.
Thank you.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Hello, my name is Pablo Nava. Very disappointed to see why Smithridge doesn't want to go to DePauli, doesn't want to go to Vaughn, despite being newest building in the district, soon to be new building, new middle school in the district. You know, it's so overwhelming that, and we remember last April that you're concerned about how our Central Reno. So we see the Central Reno population declining. So we do see, last Tuesday, we see the investment of those 4 elementary schools that feed to Vaughn. So I think there's more work to do in November. So we want to meet set up in Dawson Elementary School since Pine Middle School. So I know daunting for Smithridge community, but here we go. They're going to fight for middle school. So that will leave overcrowd to DePauli and underutilized Vaughn Middle School, because Vaughn Middle School is Title 1 school. So middle school is a different change compared to high school. Worcester Sparks will get have such fun. We'll get the activities, hopefully. In middle school, you know, at Vaughn Middle School, they will have a LD, Spanish for native speaker, all kinds of stuff, you know. For Smith Ridge, I get it, you know. Do you want to vote career alignment to deploy the money instead of going to Vaughn to deploy? Like, you're not only one who are feed from going to a different high school from primary high school or primary middle school, or from high school from primary middle school. They're a different way. You look at Cray Middle School, Peervine, MCRAS, and some Warner kids are going to Reno High School, then West of them going to McQueen. Delaware Middle School, Donna Middle School, only one school going from Delaware to Reed High School. But the middle school going to Sky Ranch, only lone school going to Reed High School. So, like a big deal, you know. You're not gonna be only one school. So I hopefully Smith Ridge will remain Vaughn for first 5 and 8 years until we figure out what the growth of Central Reno population is. If you build a new apartment, there will come new Wooster High School, new loader, new. We will resume Smith Street to DePaul in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
No other public comment.
Very good. That brings us to item 3.02. The announcement of next meeting will be November 20th, 2025 at a location to be determined. And that brings us to 3.03. We'll adjourn the meeting at 6:56. Have a safe Halloween, everyone.